Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are on our fantastic planet. And welcome to this week's live stream. My name is Wayne Clark, and I am the front man of the World Class Manager team. And we're delighted to bring this live stream to you as we're trying to do every sort of week to 10 days, maybe every 2 weeks, depending on where we are on this wonderful planet. And the objective of this, of course, is to share with you some of the latest tools, tips, insights, best practices that we found from working with thousands of managers all around the world. So if you're new to us and you're not connected to us, firstly, why not? But if you are, thank you, you're here now. And we've got the insight from about 50,000 managers who've been through our World Class Manager course in more than 30 countries. And the objective is to try and bring this to you in as rich format as possible. And I couldn't probably think of a better way to do that than to do it through live stream. So thank you. You could be anywhere in the world, as they say, and you're here with us. And we definitely appreciate that because we know everyone is so busy. The objective, again, of these sessions are to try and share with you some of the most hyper practical things that we can find, because we recognize and appreciate no one has any time. So this is all about trying to make sure that we can be as effective as possible with the short amount of time that we've got. So a very quick roll call, because we've got people signed into the stream from all around the world. I think we've got 14 countries at least represented. So good evening to those of you joined in from Mongolia or San Benu. If you don't know how to speak any Mongolian, you just learned a little bit. San Benu to everyone who's here from Mongolia. Welcome. We've got people here from India, from Egypt, from Greece, from Israel, from Ireland, from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, from Dubai, from Hong Kong, from Jordan, from Qatar, from Australia, from Cyprus, and I'm sure the list may go on. And of course, from the wonderful United Kingdom, those of us who are here from the UK. And I'm here in a unusually grey London, right? It's usually grey if you're not from the UK, but we're here. We're loving the London vibe. The energy's right, and we're excited to share with you some of these latest sort of best practices, tools, and insights on this week's live stream. So the topic for this morning is looking at this, I guess, overarching idea of how do we best build managers' skills. So every week, the budget gets bigger, the intros get flashier. Hopefully that's the plan anyway. And what we're doing is we're committed to try and evolve this every single time we do it to make sure that we can get this absolutely right. So key to this are questions. We want your interaction. We want the questions. We want your thoughts, your comments. There may be things that you have done, that you are doing, that you plan to do, that you think are absolutely top notch and world class. And we would love you to share some of that in the comments as well. So please feel free to do that as we go through. One of our colleagues, Ashley, is live also on the line responding to comments and also taking some of the questions. This is a multi-platform stream. So we're streaming it on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, somewhere else as well, I'm sure. So however you've arrived here this morning or this evening, thank you so much for being here, and let's get cracking. Now, this morning has been inspired, or this live stream has been inspired by something that I was shown many years ago. My manager, when I worked for a company called Arthur Andersen, as it was then, became Deloitte, shared with me a short video from a guy called Ed Guthrie. Ed Guthrie was from the US military, and Ed Guthrie was talking about what he described as the after-action review process. So for those of you in the worlds of coaching and L&D and HR, of course, we're quite familiar with step-back sessions, with after-action reviews. I hadn't realized and appreciated where the sort of methodology came from. It was partly informed, I think, from the US military. And as I understood by looking into the history a bit more, if you want to geek yourself out, you can find this stuff out a bit more. But it was from a guy called O'Sullivan, who was in the Second World War in the US military, who was essentially going around and trying to write up the military missions to publicize what they were up to. And in doing so, he was finding that he was learning tons from these different missions. He was observing that there were people in different parts of the world who were having the same challenges, but essentially not sharing the learning. So a lot of the origin story of knowledge management as we now know it in the modern corporation came from this. A very quick Monday morning history lesson for you. But this guy, Ed Guthrie, as we'd picked up at this point in my sort of early 20s when I was at Arthur Andersen, had this very short video, and he described these 4 questions on the after action review. So I thought what we're going to do for this morning session is we're going to use those 4 questions as the context setting structure, if you like, for how we think about the role of management development, how good we are at doing it, maybe what we might need to learn and what we can do differently next time. Now, this is awesome because I managed to find the original clip. This is an old clip, right? So this is probably from the mid 90s, early 90s. So we tried to make it as good quality as possible. We've put some I guess, quotes on there as well, so you can try and follow this if English isn't your native language, because the quality isn't great. But we've got this. So it's a 30-second clip of this guy called Ed Guthrie showing the 4 questions of the after action review process. Ed, over to you.
We invented this thing called the after action review. After action reviews, many of you know about it, but I'll just give a little quick précis. It's just disgustingly simple. It's 4 questions. What was supposed to happen, by the way, that's usually the hardest one. What was supposed to happen, everybody agree. What actually happened, what we call ground truth. What really happened on the ground, not your opinion, my opinion, what really happened on the ground. Why was there a difference, good or bad? Why was there a difference? And what can you learn from it? That's what AARs are.
This is powerful, powerful stuff, right? So 4 questions. What was supposed to happen? What actually happened? Why was there a difference in between those first 2 questions, good or bad? We're just trying to get to the truth and to the facts. And the 4th question, the big, powerful question, of course, is what can we do differently next time? What can we learn and not replicate in terms of something that wasn't so successful for us? So we're going to use these 4 questions. And what we're going to do is we're going to layer on top of those 4 questions some data, some insight from the 50,000 plus managers who've kindly shared with us their insights as they've gone through the World Class Manager course. And we're going to bring this together in a crescendo of learning, looking at how do we best build managers' skills in the organization. Now, of course, if you start out with a big question of, I guess, why do you need to build the skills of managers? Hopefully, this helps you to run into a more important strategic question of what is the objective of the organization? What's the strategy? What's the focus meant to be? And therefore, it should provide us with some context of why developing managers and building managers' skills is so important. So again, when we came up with the topic for this session, I wanted to try and as much as possible, I guess, given the time, try and encapsulate as much data and insight from our program as possible. And there are 4 key data points I wanted to share with you. And as we get to the back end of the session, there's also something else I'd love to share with you as well on this, based on some of these insights that we've been picking up all around this wonderful planet of ours. As I also say, this is a relaxed session, business casual, even though I've got like a jacket on, but I've got a meeting afterwards. Business casual is all we require, or even casual is good. And get some coffee. It's Monday morning. Well, it is for us in the UK, so coffee's ready. We're fired up, and let's get into it. Now, you may be listening to this from the perspective of this is about your focus for the entire organization. You may be a CEO, you may be a HR director, you may be a chief operating officer, chief financial officer, you may be in a senior position where your role has an impact and an effect on many people, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people across your organization. I've now had the opportunity to work with about 1,000 different CEOs in more than 30 countries around the world, and our team has worked now with more than 50,000 managers. So as you can imagine, when you look at that pattern, that spectrum between the exceptional ones we've come across and the ones that aren't so exceptional, we've learned a lot from what great management and great leadership looks like. And we recognize that there are many people in senior positions who have a tremendous amount of anxiety about how do we develop a large cohort of people. You may have managers in multiple jurisdictions around the world. We work with probably our largest client has around 250,000 people, which is larger. My family are from Barbados. It's more people than are in Barbados, right? So when we think about, there are some mega corporations here who are larger than entire nation states. So, these are significant challenges. So you may be thinking about this holistically. It's a cool word, right? Business bingo. You may be thinking about this holistically for the entire organization, or indeed you may be thinking about what does this all mean for me personally? I'm trying to build my skills. You may be a new manager. You may have an ambition to become a manager or a leader of an organization or to become the CEO. What might this be, or how might this be of value to you personally? So again, there are multiple levels of probably how you're going to think about this and what we're sharing as we go through the session. Each one is right, each one is perfect. And again, our focus is to make sure that this is as valuable as possible for you. When we start these sessions, we like to start with some intents. So my intent for this session is that this helps you to build a really robust business case for change, either for the organization or for the team or for you individually, right? So this is the key. Now, as we go through this, I want to focus on these 4 different areas that Ed Guthrie talked about in this after action review process. And as I said, we're going to try and merge this with some of our data. Never been tried before. Let's see if it works. So 4 things we're going to focus on for the live stream. One is we're going to look at what was the goal. So remember these 4 big questions. What was supposed to happen? Second question, what actually happened? And we're going to look at that in the context of your management development effort, how you build the capability of your line managers. Let's assess that. Obviously, I can't tell what you're thinking, what you're feeling, but let's go with it. And again, what we would love is that if you can make this quite self-reflective and think about what this means for your team, for your organization. Third question is why the difference? So what was the difference between 1 or 2, good or bad? And then the last one, what can we do differently next time? So to start with this first one, in terms of what the goal was. Now, this is, as Ed Guthrie talked about, often the hardest thing to agree. What was supposed to happen? And this runs into a few immediate barriers, I guess, when we start to think this through. So what was supposed to happen? Let's start with the goal of the organization. How clear is the organization? How clear is your organization about what the goal of your organization actually is? If you went around the company and picked people at random and asked them the question, what do you think the goal is? What are we trying to achieve? Not necessarily around something lofty like the mission, because it's a little bit too ethereal in most organizations, i.e. we want to be number 1 in our chosen markets. We want to be the employer of choice. All very nice stuff. It's not that meaningful. What we're talking about here is something quite specific. What's the goal? What are we actually trying to do here? And how many people might know that? Well, according to our data, we found out that about 42% of managers do not know what the goal of the organization is. This is based on about 15,500 managers who've been through the World Class Manager course. We've asked them these questions. And it's quite mind-blowing when you think about this. 42%, and I think this is probably best case scenario, right? 42% of managers do not know the goal of the organization. So we're off to an interesting start here, because when we're trying to clarify this question, what was supposed to happen? What's the goal of what we're trying to achieve here? A large percentage of the population don't know. Now remember, that's managers. If you applied this to people that are in more junior positions in your organization, what might that percentage be? Right, and we think that it gets a bit worse. And we're trying to save some energy here. So I think unless I move around a lot, then we probably are losing the light. There we go. We're back again. So 42% of managers don't understand what the goal of the organization is. So that's one challenge when we think about what was supposed to happen. Second big challenge, and I think this is a really significant, fundamentally important question to ask. Why do you want to build the manager's skills? So this session is called Building Managers' Skills, which is so obvious, isn't it? Of course, we want to build the skill set of managers. But why? Why do you want to build the skill set of managers? And this is something that we've investigated a lot as we've gone through and talked to different organizations. And of course, the clearer that we can get on this, the better. So it might be that you want to drive customer service or customer service experience or customer experience. That might be the focus of the organization. It might be about market share, in which case it may be about sales. It may be about marketing. It may be about positioning the organization differently. It may be about operational effectiveness. It may be about improving the way that we service the clients. You know, whatever the goal of the organization is, ultimately, of course, we would hope that that translates into the quality and the focus of training and development for the manager population. What do managers need, or what does the organization, need from managers? What managers need is sometimes a very different thing. We covered that in the last live stream, which was actually called What Managers Need, and that was based on some of the observations we've got from managers. Again, we can probably share the link afterwards on LinkedIn, so you can check out some of the data from last time, which again was quite compelling because we found out some fascinating things about what managers need versus what we think that they actually need. So again, another layer to this. So when we ask that question, why do you want to develop the managers or develop managers' skills? Why might we need to do that? And I think that again runs into a few interesting conundrums in a way in the organization. Certainly the more senior you get, and often it seems like there is quite a large degree of disagreement about what that means at the leadership team. We had a leadership team we work with who have, there's 10. Let's say there's 10 important people on this senior leadership team. And we asked these 10 people to give us a description of what they think the goal of the organization is. And you won't be surprised to know that there were 10 very different descriptions. Now, this is the leadership team, and they've probably got about 6.5, probably close to 7,000 people in the organization. If the top 10 or the 10 most I don't know, contextually aware individuals in the organization don't know what the goal is and are not in agreement, it's probably likely that the other 7,000 won't have a clue. So this is key. When we come back to this, what's the job of the manager of the organization in 2024 going forward? How clear are you on that? And again, why might we want to develop the manager's skills? And again, it might be worth starting outside in, looking at customer feedback data, looking at the competition, looking at market share, looking at the economic environment, looking at technological change, all of those big macro factors that will be affecting and shaping the organization often aren't taken into account when it comes to thinking about what the managers need and what the organization needs from the manager community as well. So really important. And again, I think this is probably best case based on, and the reason I say this is best case data is the organizations who put themselves forward to develop their managers. And if you're an organization focused on developing the capability of your managers, you're probably a pretty good organization. Companies who don't necessarily care that much and don't have a great culture tend to not care about investing in and developing the manager population, developing their management capability. So we found these 15,500 managers who work for organizations, government institutions who ultimately care about developing their management capability, which is why I say this is probably some good data, or in many cases, best practice, I would argue, based on what we found. So that's first big one. What's the job of this? Why might this be of utmost importance? And I guess that's pretty clear. So again, when you think about that, are you clear on that? Next question to ask is what actually happens? If you were to look at reality, what's the test for reality of how effective your existing strategy is in how you're developing this management capability? When we talk about building managers' skills, how effective is this organizational push of yours in developing that cadre, that cohort, that community, probably a better C word to use, of managers across your organization? Now, interestingly, or maybe not interestingly, depends on how you see this, about 50% of people who leave organizations cite career growth and development as the number one reason why they left the organization in the first place. It's shocking, it's mind-blowing. We've got a link coming up later to a mini-series that we shot in New York City a few months ago. So that might be interesting because there is some data that we share in there. But we had an organization that employs more than 200,000 people. We looked at the leaver data. To cut a long story short, when we found out that of the 50,000 people in one part of the company where we saw the data, 11,000 people left every year of those 50,000 people. So that's what, 20% roughly. And of those 11,000 people who left the organization every year, 5,500 cited career growth and development as the number one reason why they left the company. Now, this is a well-paying, highly paying organization, quite prestigious in terms of brand of who to work for because it's large and it's global. Even with all of that said, 50% of people who left for that reason. The reason why I say this is because, is this a good mechanism to judge the effectiveness of our training and development focus on the manager community? If 50% of the managers are saying, you know what, I'm out of here because the growth and development is lousy, then it probably tells us that we're not getting this right. So, again, back to the first point, we may be quite clear on what the organization needs. Are we clear on what the managers need? And this is telling us something really interesting here. About 50% of the managers leave the organization because of career growth and development. And for all sorts of reasons, we know that people leave managers. So of course, managers will also leave senior managers, but it's not the reason that they leave them just because they don't like them. There are other factors at play. I think it's too simplistic to say that. We know that growth and development or professional development is one of the most important causal factors of people saying, you know what, I'm out of here and I will vote with my feet. So these questions that Ed Guthrie posed to us, what was supposed to happen? What's the goal here of management, of developing manager skills? What's the goal of all of this? What actually happened? Not my opinion or your opinion, on the ground, what actually happened? What's a smart way to do a post-match analysis or a post-mortem on this? What actually happened and what might the results have been? And then the important question then to ask, of course, is what tests do we have for this? What's the reality test that we've got? It may be that you've got a great employee survey mechanism in place. It may be that you've got a great employee or colleague feedback mechanism in place, in which case you can judge this based on some data. Or it may just be that you've got some anecdotal feedback and it's a gut feel. I'm not arguing which one is right or wrong, but we will probably know whether or not we're getting this right based on some of those metrics that you've probably got access to. Third big area when we look at this is then why the difference? So we kind of looked at, what's the job of this, what was supposed to happen, what actually happened, and why might there be a difference. Now, this statistic for us is a mind-blowing statistic. For me, when we found this out, mind was blown, right? For the simple reason, I spent much of my career involved in the process of feeding back employee data to leadership teams and to CEOs all around the world. Did that for years, still do it in part, but it was a large part of what I did in terms of my own career growth and development. What we never really did as part of that mechanism is we didn't often interrogate the management community about their operational feedback. When I say that, what we're asking in an employee engagement survey is, if you think to the questions that you're probably asking your staff, they begin with things like I feel, I believe, I think. We're asking people's opinion about many things to do with the culture, to do with our values, to do with how well they see the organization and how it's led, to do with their work-life balance, well-being, remuneration. There are all of these important factors that we're measuring in the engagement survey. I'm not saying that they're not important. They very much are. What we found out when we asked this question of the managers in our world-class manager community and said, to what extent do you believe that the products or services of your organization could be better? 81% of managers said that the products or services of their organization could be better. And this was the mind-blowing statistic for me, right? It actually didn't make the book because we produced the book. Actually, there's some exceptional product placement in this live stream. There's the book, How to Become a World-Class Manager. It didn't make the book because we'd already produced the book at the time when we were looking through the data. But the fascinating thing about this statistic was 81% of managers said that the products or services of the organization could be better. I think this is mind-blowing, right? Because 4 out of 5 people are saying that things could be better. How are we picking up that insight? How are we finding that insight out? Often we're not. What we do very successfully is we listen to a range of questions and perhaps some verbatim qualitative feedback and an employee engagement survey. To what extent is that insight or that qualitative insight really investigated and understood and discussed amongst the leadership team? Not much. And I say that because I had the opportunity to present probably 500 CEOs worth of data to those leadership teams. There just isn't the time. It's like taking a sip of water from a fire hydrant. If you open the flow of water, there is just too much insight there. What we were doing with this is going very narrow band and saying, right, when it comes to looking at what you actually do to generate income or your economic engine, which is the product or services that you deliver to your customers or clients. And this could be an NHS trust. It could be a healthcare organization that's focused on the provision of patient care. This could be a manufacturing organization focused on quality or on production excellence. It could be a law firm focused on the delivery of exceptional client service. It doesn't really matter what the outcome is. What we're investigating here is, to what extent did the managers who deliver those services through their teams believe that things could be better? And they've got a very, very strong opinion on what could be better. What happens to this opinion? Well, it gets stunted, it gets trapped. In the extreme cases, it gets used in a way for people's own personal gain. People lie, they don't want to feed back this data for all sorts of reasons, right? Politically in organizations, and we've seen many games get played with this sort of access to this data. But the truth often is that we've got a strong opinion about how things could be better, how the operation could run smoother. And what we don't have a mechanism often is to get that insight rapidly at speed to the important decision makers who can make a call on whether we should change course or do something differently. And the reason why we put this in this bucket of why the difference is because when we look at what was supposed to happen versus what actually happened, why might there be a difference? Well, the difference is that we often have got it wrong in the sense that we don't exactly know what we're shooting at and why we might be doing this. Reality changes. In the last week, if you look at global events, everything changes so rapidly all the time. Everything at work changes all the time. And how fast can we be at listening to and responding to what we're hearing from the people in the organization? So we found out when we look at this number, it's a huge number. And how do we improve this? Big challenge. And then the final one of looking at, what do we do differently next time? What can we do differently next time? This is interesting also because we found out that when we look at the needs of the manager community and what they understand, is that it turns out that only 61% of managers feel like they understand the preferences of the people in their teams. And again, this is a strong cohort of managers. These are great managers, often working for great organizations all around the world. But 61% of managers only understand the needs of their team, which means, of course, around 40% of people, of managers, saying that they don't understand the needs of the team. So when it comes to what we can do differently next time, and probably this has been a theme, hopefully in terms of the messaging running through all of these 4 areas, is the extent to which we probably need to do a smarter job at listening to what people need in the organization. Now, of all the organizations we've come across, and again, I've had the opportunity to sort of see inside of, more than 1,000 organizations all around the world, there are some consistent things which keep coming up time and time again. And I wanted to touch upon maybe 1 or 2 of those. These will be a consistent theme in many of the live streams if you're involved with us, or indeed in our World Class Manager course. We focus on this a lot because we know that this has such a disproportional impact in terms of all of these things. And that is the very, very simple thing. And you're probably going to say, oh, Wayne, seriously, really? Is that it? Is this the height of what we're talking about? Is this the height of what you've learned through all this interaction with managers around the world? Yes, it is. And the thing that we've learned is that the good quality one-to-one, there you go, I said it, the good quality one-to-one has a disproportional impact on all of this stuff. Think about this for a moment. Let's put it in context. You're my line manager. We have a good quality, regular one-to-one where everything is open to be discussed, where we feel like there is the right type of psychological safety, if you want to use that phrase, at play, which means that you and I feel safe enough to be able to have the most adult conversation about anything to do with either our development, what's going on in the team, what's going on in the organization. It's a great team culture, right? You and I sit together every, let's say, for argument's sake, every 12 weeks, because we probably think a 90-day cycle of having these conversations is a smart idea. When we get into these conversations every 3 months, imagine this now. We're sitting there. You're saying to me, Wayne, look, remember, the goal of what we're trying to achieve here in the organization, you're a senior manager, by the way. The goal of what we're trying to achieve here in the organization is that we've got to increase our customer service score. Right, this is key for us, or our client service delivery score. We need to improve how our customers see us, because at the moment, we're doing a pretty good job. Our products and services are pretty good, but the customer doesn't feel that way about us because of a few things that we need to focus on. Okay, right, got it. So what I need from you, Wayne, and I've got a small team of people that I look after who are on the front line delivering to our customers and to our clients. What I need from you, Wayne, is to really get a better grasp of what our customers and our clients are saying, because I kind of feel like, I've got access as a senior manager to this data, but you don't really, and I share it with you, but I don't really think you spent enough time to think about this. Right? This is something so fundamentally important, because now what I've got the opportunity to do as a line manager, as a first-time frontline team supervisor, line manager, is to pay a bit more attention to what our customers might be saying about us. And now I've got a deeper grasp of that. Now that's so important because I can turn that into a positive interaction with the frontline team, who are spending the majority of their time with the people who the organization serves, of course, who play the most important role in the service delivery of any organization. If we evaluated that in, say, 6 months' time and said, right, what's the goal here? The goal was to improve customer service delivery or client service delivery. The skill to build the managers was focused around understanding what was happening in the customer's world, understanding customer data, understanding customer feedback. And I translated that into something reality-based for the team. Maybe I even made the final step of articulating their next 6-month development plans based on this golden thread of understanding that customer service delivery was the key. What actually happened was the goal got delivered on because the team changed their behavior based on this golden thread and therefore delivered on what the goal of the organization was. This is working out pretty good. Why was there a difference? Well, there was no difference because we did exactly what we needed to do. And what can we do differently next time? Let's keep doing what we're doing. I mean, that's a simple, very fast after action review, right? But it absolutely nails everything. Look at it the other way. What happens every 3 months? I sit with my line manager. My line manager says, or maybe let's say I ask them, I've been to a, world-class manager live stream on LinkedIn, and I kind of figure out that it should be a good thing that we've got a clear organizational goal that we should all be shooting at. So in my next one-to-one, I'm the manager. I'm going to ask the senior manager, what is the goal of the organization, Mary? What should we be achieving? Mary's like, I don't know. I really don't know. I know as much as you, Wayne. Oh, I'm like, okay, fair enough. And let's say we get on. I'm totally clueless, as Mary is. When it comes to a conversation with the team, I'm not going to share any of that because I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm talking about. So what was the goal? Who knows? What actually happened? Well, no development actually happened. Why was there a difference? Well, because no one knew what was going on. And what should we do differently next time? Find out what's going on. Right? But then, I think maybe we could add another layer to some of these questions here, which might be, what's the cost of all of this, right? Because there's a tremendous cost in not nailing this stuff properly. So I hope you can see, when we look through this structure, I think it's a really valuable structure to evaluate how your organization is building the skill of managers and what there is that we can do to make an impact on this. One of the organizations that we talk about at length, if you know me or you're connected to us, we talk about them a lot. I won't expose who they are because it's probably a bit unfair, but they're a global hotelier who are absolutely exceptional. They've got the best guest feedback scores in nearly every location where they have a hotel around the world. I mean, they are truly exceptional. This organization replicates what I was just talking about. They have a 3-monthly one-to-one conversation process, which manages to solve many of the things that we're talking about here and helps them to align this organizational goal with what this means for me in terms of my delivery in the moment to the people who ultimately matter, i.e. the customer, the beneficiary, the client, the patient, or the people the organization is ultimately designed to serve. So with that said, I'm going to take a pause for a minute and hopefully we've got a few questions coming in or a few questions ready. I'll hang out for a while and let's see how we get on. If there aren't any questions coming in, then please feel free to engage with us after on this link because it's available. And also we're going to be holding another live stream next week, which I'll share with you in a moment. So final thing, hopefully while you're getting some questions and some thoughts ready, is to share with you something else which is available now on our website. So if you get out your phone with the help of some world-class graphics here, this is the Live from New York, is our New York mini-series. So you can scan this code and it will take you to the page where we've got access to our Insight mini-series from New York City. So what we did is we took the 12 areas of the World-Class Manager program, World-Class Manager course, and we shot a specific video on each part of that, and that's available for free, open access for you to engage with and learn some more stuff from. If indeed this will be useful for your managers, please feel free to share this with as many of your managers as possible. These are the key things we found out from interacting with managers all around the world. So it's a global view, but 12 really important things that we think are key to focus on. So with that said, we're coming to the end of this session. I think, as always, as we go through this, our focus is to try and bring to life and try and share with you as much as possible some of the insights that we're finding out from all these great organizations around the world. Our next session, which is going to be up in about 10 days' time, which is going to be live from Cape Town, is going to be called How to Speed Up Learning. And we're going to look at how do we, as it says on the tin, how do we speed up learning in the organization? What we're finding, of course, is the rate of change of life just never ceases. It seems to get faster all the time. And what we're going to do in the next live stream is look at how do we learn as effectively as possible. As you can see, there is a question coming in, so I'm going to hang out for a while. Great question. Hopefully, of course, it's going to be a great question. This is Tracy Lever. It's going to be a great question. As employees progress through an organization, the availability of roles and promotion opportunities reduce. Very true. There is a huge challenge and a tough one to overcome. Keeping them engaged whilst they wait for the next role is a challenge with external competition present, which points to, great question, Tracy. Thank you so much. Which points to the consistent challenge, which gets harder and harder for the organization of how to retain talent, right? This becomes one of the most challenging things to do. Now, is it that the more junior people in the organization are saying that I'm voting with my feet, I'm leaving because there aren't development opportunities? Or is it the senior people in the organization who say that? The answer is it's everyone. Everyone has a desire to grow, to develop, to move on, to progress. And often what we find, interestingly, is people in really senior positions can also be guilty of not having very good quality one-to-ones with line managers. And this requires, I couldn't have paid you enough, Tracy, to come up with this question. This is an awesome question. This requires that the manager does two things really effectively. When we talk to young students at university, so I lecture at City University, and one of the things I often talk to the master's students and the undergrads about is two key things. Is about what we call the dream manager, right? The dream manager should do two things really effectively. One is that they should understand the organization really well. If you've got the feeling that you're working for a manager who's really poorly networked, it's quite likely that they're not going to be able to develop an entrepreneurial way of coming up with opportunities to grow and develop because they're not that well connected. Second aspect or second characteristic of this dream manager is that they seem to care genuinely about your personal growth and development. So are they well connected? Are they well networked? Do you get a sense that this individual actually cares about your growth and your development? If the answer to those questions is no, when I talk to an undergraduate, I would suggest this is probably not the right manager to work with. Maybe carry on interviewing, find someone else, if indeed that is a choice that you have. So when it comes to this, if you look at the senior managers, as Tracy's intimated here, the more senior you become in the organization, these two aspects become even more important, vitally important. If you are the chairman, if you are the CEO, having a conversation with one of your C-level executives on a regular basis about their growth and development, it's incumbent upon you as a senior leader to be able to get into a deep and meaningful question about life, dreams, hopes, ambitions, what people want to achieve, and therefore hopefully tie up that goal of the individual with something that we might be able to offer as the organization. On the extreme case and the costly end, this might be something like exec ed, it might be an MBA, it might be some sort of short course at Harvard. Maybe that satisfies that itch. It might be access to another part of the organization to be able to develop a different skill set that, of course, makes me valuable both inside the organization and, should I choose to leave, makes me valuable outside the organization as well. So there are many aspects of this. Great question, Tracy. And I think the further we go in the organization, the more senior we become, of course, the more incumbent it is on senior leaders to really give this some considered thought. So a massive thank you to everyone for joining in this live stream. Next one is going to be in about 10 days time. It's going to be live from Cape Town, South Africa. So I'm very much looking forward to being there in Cape Town. I guess we're going to have a slight slant on the South African business market as well. We'll probably be doing some different stuff in terms of content and also maybe some of the ideas that we look at as well. But we'll see. This is global. It's just going to be the fact that we're going to be in South Africa. So looking forward to that. I'm not going to go because it seems there is another question coming in. So we'll answer this question before we end the stream. LinkedIn user. So managers often become the blockers to development of teams and fail to recognize that they are seen in this way. How do you change that? What a great killer question. I'm seeing the question at the same time as you. Managers often become the blockers to development of teams and fail to recognize that they are seen in this way. How do you change that? Well, this is going to be the key challenge, right? This is like the central challenge for the individual, regardless of what level you're at in the organization. It could be that there is a total misalignment of expectations and ideas about where you see yourself going and where this other individual sees you going to. That could be one challenge. The other challenge here, of course, could be that the individual in that more senior role may actually be a blocker in terms of going out of their way to block your career development. It sounds like quite a nasty thing. It's something that we've come across time and time again. And that can be for many reasons. It can be that they are perhaps jealous of your own development. It could be that you're maybe managing to achieve something that they couldn't. One of the first managers I had when I joined the workforce, I'll say that leaving university, was fascinating. He kept telling me where I should be by a certain age. And it seemed to be that I was getting faster of achieving that thing by the certain age. And he didn't like it because his frame of reference was, you are 25 years old. This is where you should be. You shouldn't be worrying about that yet. I just thought that's an insane way to look at it. So there's going to be many reasons why those individuals who might be more senior could actually block your career development. If that is the case, of course, you've got to try and do everything possible to convince that individual that this isn't great for you. It's not great for the team. It's not great for the organization. And probably it's not great for the people you serve. If you can't manage to change that, then of course you should be looking to get away from that manager as soon as possible, because this is not going to be great for your career development and it's probably going to end up in all sorts of other areas as well. So I think this is a major red flag if you're getting the sense that this is the case. And also, sort of taking back and thinking about 100% responsibility, is there something that you've done or are doing that's causing this relationship to be slightly fractious? We looked at this in a previous live stream in the sense that there may be a way to look at what's the nature of that relationship with that individual and can you change that? So for example, it might be that you've got this regular game that gets played. Every few months you sit in the same office, somewhere like here, and you have this conversation about your growth and development, and it always kind of goes a similar way. And maybe that's been the case for years, right? Think about relationships that you've been in for years, even personal one-to-one relationships with your loved other half. can be difficult, right? And can fall into a pattern. So this is the case at work. Could it be that you could change up the pattern, change the environment, have lunch together, have dinner together, have breakfast together, talk about these things in a different setting, which can often make things different? Also, to what degree do we have empathy for those individuals who are in more senior positions? We make up a whole bunch of assumptions about them and their lives, and often we don't really understand that either. Often what we found is, when you look at the imposter syndrome problem happens at every level in every organization. I mean, this is something that we consistently come across. So again, as a manager, having empathy for what the senior manager may be going through may be really important. We may understand the reasons why they're being a blocker. It may be at the end of all of this that they're an absolute dirtbag as a manager, in which case get away from them. But we've got to give them the benefit of the doubt and try some other strategies first before we reach that conclusion. So again, massive thank you for joining the stream. We look forward to being with you next week live from Cape Town. Huge thank you for being here. And as always, we love sharing our insights, best practices, tools, tips, and the best things we've learned from working with over 50,000 managers around the world. Look forward to seeing you soon and wishing you a mega successful week ahead. Bye-bye.